Whoopi Goldberg jumped into the fight with a lot of confidence because she thought she had the upper hand. But Bill Maher delivered a crushing blow all at once. Or at least that's how I saw it happen. Was woke society shown for what it really is, or is this just a different take on the story? Whoopi's whole case fell apart, or at least that's how the public saw it. Maher's one sharp line changed the tide, but the bigger question still stands. Is this really the truth, or is it just a story from one narrow point of view? A round table with two media giants facing off was lit up in a bright studio. On one side was host Bill Maher, who is known for being very funny and honest. Whoopi Goldberg, the famous actor, host of The View, and a well-known TV voice for America's woke culture, was sitting across from him. Even though it looked calm, anyone who looked could tell that a storm was starting to form below the surface. There was a champion of free speech going up against a supporter of what some people call progressive righteousness. This was the match everyone wanted. He has long been known for taking a strong stand against what he sees as the woke movement's crazy ideas. He doesn't completely disagree with the idea of social justice, but he thinks it has gone too far and turned into a strict form of control. For Maher, free speech is the most important thing. No one should be able to stop people from saying or thinking something just because it goes against their views. On the other hand, Whoopi Goldberg is a strong supporter of woke society. She has repeatedly pushed for ideas like limiting material that could be insulting, making public figures responsible for what they say, and saying that society needs to change to protect weak groups from harm. This could have been a serious discussion, but their past disagreements in a roundabout way suggested otherwise. Maher has often said that Whoopi and The View use emotional thinking, but Whoopi has hit back on TV, saying that he doesn't understand why society needs to change. Whoopi is used to being in trouble. There are many famous movies and TV shows she has been in, from Ghost and The Color Purple to her part on The View. But what really gets people's attention is how vocal she is. She shocked everyone in 2022 when she said the Holocaust wasn't about race. For that, she was kicked off The View for 2 weeks. Even though she said she was sorry, many people will always remember what she said. She has also stood up for other controversial ideas, such as critics of social media content limits or people who want to see certain books taken out of libraries because they might be harmful. When Bill Maher went on The View this time, everyone knew it wouldn't be responsive. When two people argue on TV about politics or culture, the debate usually goes like this. Each side makes their point, spars briefly, and then the debate ends. But this wasn't like that. Maher had earlier given a heated speech about the risks of woke culture, saying that it has been used to control people and silence free speech. It's not about justice anymore, it's about control, he said. People paid attention to that line, especially Whoopi's fans and viewers of The View, who were expecting her to fire back with a fiery response. The media went crazy, with stories calling Maher showing on The View one of the most memorable TV moments of the year. Online, people started fighting before the show even aired. People who supported Maher thought he would easily beat Whoopi's points, while people who supported Whoopi thought she would show him why woke culture is important. As the show started, all of these emotions came together to make the air feel tense. Bill Maher, on the other hand, seemed calm and at ease, like he had been getting ready for this fight for years. Whoopi arrived with her usual grace. No one knew what would happen, but one thing was certain. It wouldn't be dull. Bill Maher and Whoopi Goldberg looked at each other on set, and it felt like a chess match between two experienced pros. Once the camera started rolling, though, it was clear that Whoopi would make the first move. It didn't take her long to strike with a serious look. You've always had strong opinions, but don't you think there comes a time when people need to be held accountable for their words? This line got everyone's attention in the studio and beyond. It was more than just a question. It was a challenge. Whoopi didn't hold back. She wanted to get to the heart of the argument. Free speech versus taking responsibility for what you say. Before Maher could say anything, Whoopi kept going strong and talked about America's most important problems head on. We live in a time when people feel unsafe because of words. said on TV, in politics, online. And that has real consequences, Bill, she said. Free speech can't protect hurtful statements, especially those that might spread hate or hurt the weak. Whoopi used recent events to make her point, how politicians use divisive language to sway voters, how public figures' careless words have caused serious problems, and how social media has turned into a place where people can say mean things without anyone watching. She said, words have power. They can uplift, but they can also destroy. And when someone with a platform refuses to acknowledge that, it's dangerous. It was clear that she was talking about Mossor. Whoopi didn't stop there. She went deeper into woke culture, which is not what Maher might have thought she would do. Instead of admitting that it was too much, she supported it with strong conviction. It's not censorship to her. She sees woke culture as a way to make society better. People talk about woke like it's a bad thing, but what does it really mean? It means being aware. It means understanding that words and actions have consequences. It means learning from the past and doing better. She said that people who criticize woke culture are afraid of change and don't want to accept that society is becoming more sensitive to racism, gender inequality, and minority rights. Whoopi pointed to movements like the #MeToo movement or the civil rights movement in the 1960s as examples of movements that really made things better. We wouldn't be where we are now if we didn't fight back and demand accountability. We still have a long way to go. The room was filled with cheers. Or should I? Whoopi was in charge. There's no ignoring her power in the media. She's been on TV for decades and knows how to get people to pay attention and use emotion as an argument tool. People in the crowd agreed with her every time she made a point, and some even clapped when she was done. Bill Maher just sat there and watched. Even though Whoopi was on her own for a few minutes, he didn't move or talk over her. Maher fans knew this wasn't giving up, it was waiting. There was a fight online as the show played. People had a lot to say about their fight on Twitter and other sites. People who liked Whoopi praised her for telling the truth and standing up to Maher. But was Maher really beat? There was no anger in his face while Whoopi spoke. No one spoke up or argued. He just sat there with his hands on the table and his eyes on her as if he were thinking about every word she said. It felt strange to be so still. When Whoopi hits a guest, most of them try to cut in or answer quickly. Maher wasn't. That might have confused Whoopi. She wasn't sure if he agreed or was just waiting for a chance to strike. Then while Whoopi took a breath, Maher tilted his head and gave a small smile. Are you done? The room was on fire because of that simple question. Someone laughed, and someone else leaned in, eager to hear what came next. Whoopi blinked, shocked. She gave a nod to show that she was. He leaned back, took a deep breath, and then spoke. That's when everyone knew the real fight had just begun. Okay, now let's talk about reality. The studio went quiet. After Whoopi Goldberg finished her case, she said a lot and signed it as a promise. She was sure that her sharp points had pinned Bill Maher down, but Maher doesn't give up easy. He leaned back in his chair with a knowing smile and raised an eyebrow at Whoopi. After a moment of quiet, he asked, So Whoopi, when did common sense become offensive? The question fell like a stone, which silenced the room. Mayor's position made Whoopi blink, and she looked confused. She creased her brow and leaned back a little, but she didn't say anything. She wasn't given a chance to get better by Maher. You say that people should be responsible for their words, which is fair, but who gets to decide what is right and wrong? You? The press? Online vigilantes? Why, who's Whoopi, who is popular with progressives today, could be shunned tomorrow if they don't follow the constantly changing woke line. The comment hit at the heart of woke culture, a movement that takes pride in being moral but is always changing the rules. Maher wasn't done yet. He came ready and now delivered his strongest counterattack. He used Jay to show how woke society fails its own heroes. Left and was used to love J.K. Rowling's diverse stories, but now they avoid her because of her views on gender. Some people on the left love J.K. Rowling, but now she's almost in exile because she tried to think differently. Is that fair? The crowd got up. Maher's logic made sense, but he had more to say. He made Whoopi the center of attention. Whoopi, let's talk about you. You said something about the Holocaust that made me gasp. You were put on probation, People wanted you to leave. Did saying, sorry suffice? If you break the rules of stop culture, you should be off the show for good. Whoopi's face got tight. Her hand on the arm of the chair turned white. Maher leaned in and his voice dropped, making it sharper. This is what woke society does wrong. It's not about being fair. It's about having power. You know it's about fear because you've been on both ends of it. Whoopi was about to respond, but Maher raised his hand to show that he wasn't done. You keep talking about responsibility, but where's the punishment for the hordes that destroy? Lives over a post. What about people who tell artists, writers, and even scientists to be quiet because their ideas don't fit the norm? Now, the public changed. People who were cheering for Whoopi stopped. Some people nodded when Maher spoke. Whoopi, an expert of TV, looked very upset. She tried to fight back, but Bill told her, this isn't about control. To protect people from careless words, Maher said with a smirk. He lightly tapped the table to get ready for the kill shot. Really? Because last time I checked, making false charges hurt a lot. How many jobs have been lost because of words made decades ago? Do you think all of those people should be sent away for a mistake? Whoopi went quiet. Maher stuck with it. Hey, Whoopi, I'm all for growth when it comes to fairness, equality, and respect. But what we have now is not respect. It's force. It's the fear of saying the wrong thing even when you mean well. That's not having freedom. That's not the United States. The whole mood of the room changed. A lot of people who used to support Whoopi now looked at Maher with new respect. The whispers got louder. Some people in the crowd agreed with me, while others looked at Whoopi in an awkward way. She tried to get back on track, but her hold was weakening. A lot of people watched clips from the show online. People were amazed at how Maher showed holes in the reasoning of Whoopi and woke society. A lot of people said, Maher just destroyed Whoopi. She had no comeback. At last, someone says it out loud. Woke culture is about power, not fairness. Whoopi looked shocked. That was a surprise to her. At the end of his case, Maher said something very powerful. If your idea of progress is shutting down everyone who disagrees with you, then maybe you're not the good guys. Whoopi didn't say anything. Everyone could tell she was nervous by the way she looked down. Even though the argument wasn't over, things had changed a lot. The air in the room had changed completely. People used to follow Whoopi Goldberg, but now Bill Maher was in charge. Everyone was looking at the man who had just hit Whoopi with a hard counterpunch, leaving her in a tight spot. Whoopi isn't one to give up, though. As someone who had watched a lot of TV, she knew one thing for sure. When logic fails, feeling can save the day. As she took a big breath, she leaned forward and looked at him with a heavy spirit. Bill, I have a question for you, she said in a duller voice. Have you ever been scared to wake up in a country where people who look like you are being picked on just for being? There was silence in the room. Whoopi gave up clear thinking in favor of a more personal tone, which made it more real. She kept talking. Freedom of speech is great, but for some of us, people see us differently because of them. They change how people treat us, and sometimes they put our lives in danger. This wasn't a direct debate with Maher. It was meant to touch people's hearts. It worked. Others looked at each other knowingly and nodded. Whoopi turned up the heat. Bill, what do you mean by woke culture control? Isn't it also survival? Isn't it about giving people who have been ignored for too long a voice? She stared at Maher, daring him to give up. Maher didn't get angry. He didn't answer right away. He knew how to beat her because he had seen her play. He toned down, but kept it sharp. Whoopi, no one is saying there aren't real struggles. But since when did we decide that shutting down disagreement is the answer? You did talk about fear. But what about being afraid to speak out? What about people who are afraid to say what they think because they know they'll be called monsters? Whoopi pursed her lips. She wasn't happy with this answer. You say words have weight, Maher said next. I agree, but it's true both ways. No one is safe if we get rid of people because they made one mistake or expect that they have perfect views. Not even you. The crowd spoke in whispers. Those who were moved by Whoopi's feelings started to loosen up. Then, just as the argument was reaching its peak, something shocking happened. There was a new voice. Hold on. May I join in for a moment? The camera turned to co-host Joy Bihar, who had been quiet while she watched Maher and Whoopi fight. She stepped in now. She looked at them both and said, "I think there's a bigger question here that neither of you are answering." Everyone paused and waited. What is cancel culture? Is it real, or is it just a way for powerful people to avoid responsibility? Joy's question hit like a thunderclap. Whoopi did it right away. The same. That's my point. People aren't fired. They're just having to deal with what they did. I laughed, Maher. Oh, Joy, come on. That's not true, you know that. Why do so many people in Hollywood, entertainment, the media, and everyday life get scared to say the wrong thing if cancel culture is not real? People lose their jobs because of a bad joke or an old post. Joy just shrugged. Because times change, Bill. It doesn't fly now what it did 20 years ago. That's how we get bigger. Maher gave a nod and smiled. That's true, but growth should mean progress, not punishments. There's no growth right now. We're eating ourselves up. All three of them looked at each other. No one said anything else. The argument went crazy online. Viewers were split. Some people backed Whoopi, saying she hit important notes about unfairness and the power of words. Others agreed with Maher that woke culture's arrogance is about control, not justice. Joy's shock made things even less clear. She didn't fully choose one side, but she made them both think again. That's why the fight didn't end, it got worse. Tension was high in the room. They had been yelling at each other for almost an hour about woke culture, free speech, and its limits. The story got more complicated when Joy Behar jumped in out of the blue. But one thing was clear. Maher was ahead. On speaking duty, Whoopi had thrown everything at them, emotional counterstrikes, pleas about unfairness, and big questions. But Maher wouldn't move, no matter how hard she tried. There was a moment that no one saw coming. He leaned back, took a deep breath, and looked at Whoopi with an eyebrow raised. He paused as if he wasn't sure if he should let it go. With a small grin, he said something that set the studio on fire. Whoopi, you say words have consequences. Okay, let's be honest. You wouldn't be here right now if cancel culture was fair. The words hit the ground like a heavy brick. The actress Whoopi Goldberg's eyes got bigger, and she looked shocked. She opened her mouth to fight back, but nothing came out. Maher pushed for the lead. So let's get this straight. Cancel culture is not about fairness. It has to do with power. It comes down to who decides what's okay. And the fact that the person who said some crazy things, are still here while others are killed shows that I was right. Everyone in the room held their breath. Whoopi, who had been on TV and movies for a long time and never lost her cool, was fooled for the first time. She tried to laugh and shook her head as if to ignore it, but she couldn't come up with a good answer. The woman next to her, Joy Behar, also looked shocked. She looked at Whoopi as if she had something to say, but all that she did was sigh, shrug, and say, "Well, Bill, that's your take." Maher gave a smile. "Yes, Whoopi, and I still get to have one because of free speech." The crowd cheered loudly when the show was over. There were clips going all over social media sites. People all over the world heard Maher's great lines. Maher just took away Whoopi's whole career in one shot. Wow, that's a lot of irony. Whoopi likes cancel culture, but she's only here because it lets her off the hook. I've never seen Whoopi so shut up before. Videos on YouTube with mean hashtags like Mohor destroys Whoopi, cancel culture exposed, and free speech matters quickly went viral. Breakdowns were seen on political and culture programs. There were cheers for Maher because they said he hit the nail on the head. Well, culture isn't fair. It's a game of who gets to talk. Most of the watchers agreed with Maher. No matter what you think, everyone agreed that he said what many people think but won't say. Whoopi kept going on air after the show. She didn't think about the fight much, but it was clear that it had changed her. Who was Maher? He didn't need to say anything else. He dropped the mic with a single line that ended the whole thing and left his opponent speechless. That moment will stay with me for a long time. When the show went viral, Whoopi Goldberg got a lot of hate. One person walk away. Whoopi had gotten into fights before with her strong words, but this was different. The video of Maher holding her down became a sign of how contradictory woke society is. Some longtime fans started to wonder if the ban was going too far. Others supported her, saying Maher made the discussion about himself instead of the issue. Worse, the woke people she had been a part of turned against her. If Whoopi's all for woke culture, Why didn't she fight harder? Ask a left-wing agitator. Some people were meaner. Whoopi flopped. If she can't stand up for woke ideas, she might want to take a break. There was Whoopi all the time, but her spark was going out. Being less fierce than before, she became more careful. Could this be a turning point in her job that forces her to adjust to a new world? Maher, meanwhile, solidified his reputation as a woke slayer. Before Bill Maher, he was just a voice of disagreement. Now, he's a TV leader against woke culture. His videos got millions of views in just a few days after this fight. People on YouTube wrote, Maher didn't just beat Whoopi, he burned woke culture's whole case in minutes. Maher and I don't always get along, but this time he really hit the mark. Maher went even further on his show. I'm not against progress. What I'm against is zealotry and words that are policed and turned into a witch hunt. Many people on the right, and even some mainstream lefties who were sick of woke word wars, backed him up after that. Maher's career took off. Viewers jumped after the show. His audience grew quickly, which shows that this subject touched a nerve. More important people in politics, the media, and big guests started to publicly support him and want to be on his show to reach more people. He went from being a funny host to a strong voice on politics and society. It was a split press when it pounced. Conservatives were happy about Maher's victory because they saw it as proof that woke culture is going too far and backfiring. Bill Maher exposes the woke hypocrisy was the title of one story. Whoopi has nothing to offer. This is what Ben Shapiro said on his podcast. Woke culture took a major hit. Some news sources defended Whoopi, saying that Maher skewed the argument to win over viewers. One person wrote, Bill Maher uses conservative debate tricks to hurt Whoopi Goldberg. Not a good example. Some reporters played it down as normal fighting, but they couldn't deny that it had an effect. Does woke culture lose its hold on us at the start of a new era? Woke culture is going away. Hollywood stopped following woke trends. Extreme control was met with resistance from actors, directors, and artists. People stopped watching too sensitive material because they wanted free speech and fair discussion. TV changes things up. The way talk shows talk changed to avoid woke ruts. Fearing backlash from viewers, producers rethought how to deal with politics and society. Maher makes a change happen. It's possible that Bill Maher put an end to the TV rule of woke culture. Many people see this as an important wake-up call that shows the media is changing how they cover social problems. The fight between Maher and Whoopi wasn't just entertainment on TV. It showed how people's ideas have changed dramatically. However, woke culture is not dead. In fact, Bill Maher is the first person to seriously question it on TV. So did Bill Maher really insult Whoopi Goldberg in real time? Maybe. Or maybe that's just how I saw Some people will think Maher is very smart and interesting. Just chose not to follow his rules. It's not about who is right or wrong. This is the question. From what angle are we seeing this happen? And if you think everything is clear, ask yourself, how many other people are stuck on a different version of the truth?